Ukraine is grateful to America for everything it did to support Ukraine. We are grateful for America's support, which has also been in America's interests. If President Trump prioritizes the American interest, I believe that continuing cooperation with President Zelensky and with Ukraine would be right course of action.
Ukraine's leader has praised European unity after a summit in London yesterday, whilst also stressing the need for security guarantees from the US following that unpleasant public dressing down from Donald Trump on Friday. Let's speak now to Danylo Lubkivsky. He's a former Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine. He's now the director of the Kyiv Security Forum. Welcome to Times Radio. Let me just get your reaction immediately on how Zelensky was treated in the Oval Office.
Well, we witness an unfortunate situation in the Oval Office. In my opinion, neither President Trump nor President Zelensky benefited from it. Only Putin did. In my opinion, the most important thing right now is to set emotions aside. Ukraine is grateful to America for everything it did to support Ukraine. We are grateful for America's support, which has also been in America's interests. If President Trump prioritizes the American interest, I believe that continuing cooperation with President Zelensky and with Ukraine would be right course of action. President Trump takes pride in his reputation as skilled negotiator. What we saw in the Oval Office was a disaster. That was a bad example. No one benefited from it. That's why I believe that Trump's team will find enough wisdom to move past the issue and resume discussions with Ukraine without unnecessary conditions. And on Ukraine's side, I also believe that President Zelensky is eager, ready to ensure everything necessary to resume talks and to establish or re-establish dialogue with Washington. The most important part here is willingness.
But where do these talks go? If the United States will not give security guarantees, then Britain and France and others will not deploy peacekeeping forces on the front line. So isn't there a danger that these talks actually, if they ever get going again, they fall at the first hurdle?
There are plenty of dangerous scenarios before us. And the most dangerous scenario is that the United States decides not to be a partner in this process, but simply as they pretend to be a negotiator, mediator, not understanding that Russia waged war not only against Ukraine, but against the United States. Contrary to that, we in Ukraine applaud the leadership of Britain and what we saw during the Allies Summit initiated by your Prime Minister Starmer. I think this is the right way how to move ahead. Since the summit itself sent two major messages. The message number one, that Britain and Europe reaffirmed their readiness not to abandon Ukraine, and this sends very strong signal both to President Trump and Putin. And for signal number two, message number two, that Prime Minister Starmer, President Macron, Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, including other distinguished participants of discussions in London, in particular NATO Secretary General, that they are ready to do their best to ensure that negotiations between Kyiv and Washington and Europe are resumed. And by doing so, by implementing or presenting the plan which was announced yesterday as a peace plan which may come from London and European capitals, including Ukraine, that would be the roadmap which would be necessary to convince it's even difficult for me to say, but since it sounds ridiculous, but nevertheless, to convince the United States remain the leader of free world, not a puppet in hands of Russia.
But it wasn't really a peace plan. It was an attempt to get a ceasefire, which is different from a peace plan, and even that might not succeed, there must surely be a danger, a worry in Kyiv, as there is in London and Paris and Berlin, even in Rome, that President Trump doesn't like Europe. That's clear. J.D. Vance is a typical old-fashioned Republican isolationist. There must be a danger that they just turn their backs on Europe and say, we don't care. Russia's a regional threat. The region is Europe. It's none of our business. You must be worried about that.
If so, it means that this is the challenge that we have to face and not to be afraid of it. President Putin mistakenly thought that he can conquer Ukraine in 3 days. Ukraine showed necessary bravery to stand up to his aggression and to fight for freedom, for the international law, for its independence, together with the Western allies. I think that this is the right conclusion for everyone who understands, comprehends, realizes the enormous threat which comes from the will of some bigger international figures to stick to the rule might is right instead of international law. If might is right prevails, it would definitely mean that the global catastrophe may endanger not only Ukraine, but all our countries.
Indeed. I hear what you're saying. I fear might is right is the default position of Mr. Trump, but we shall see in the days ahead. Danylo Lubkivsky, thank you for joining us here on Times Radio.
Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
If you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Wait a
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this.
We
gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion. We gave you military equipment, and you men are brave, but they had to use our military. If you didn't have our military equipment,